What up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of the Strength Forward Podcast. Today's guest is Tanner Balazs. Just kidding. Tanner Balazs. We got to tell that joke about Noah. That's so funny.
Yeah.
But Tanner is a heck of a competitor in the CrossFit world. Him and I have been friends now for quite a few years. We've competed against each other. We've competed with each other. We've trained alongside each other. And I mean it when I say he is a phenomenal athlete. And he's also helping people with their nutrition, with their fitness as well. So today's going to be a great podcast to just dive into all of that. But I'm going to let him share his story first and just how he got into CrossFit and a little bit about himself. And then we're going to dive into the rest, man. So why don't you tell people who you are?
Yeah, like you said, Tanner Balazs. That's my real last. But yeah, the CrossFit thing was weird. It's actually funny timing because I did a question sticker on Instagram last night, and almost always somebody asks how I got into CrossFit, which is unique. And the very short answer is that I was training clients at a CrossFit gym when I got out of school. This is back in like 2019. And these guys this CrossFit gym was about to do Murph. And they were like, hey, are you going to do Murph? And I'm like, man, I've heard of it, but remind me what it is. And so anyway, I was actually fasting that day. It was probably around lunch. Yeah, I was training clients, and they talked me into it. I ran home, got some workout clothes, came back and did Murph. And I'll never forget this one guy who's a good friend of mine now. He like put grips on my hands, and he was like, hey, you're going to need these. Because it was like 93 degrees and humid. And so yeah, I ended up doing Murph, and Brian Wong was the guy that had asked me if I was going to do it. And he's, for people that don't know him, he's like the 2022 35 to 39-year-old champion at the games. And then I think he finished second the following year, maybe in 23.
Oh, wow. Nice.
So very fit dude. He's been top 10 at Wadapalooza, and he went to regionals back in the day, Central East, when it was the Beast of the East, and it was the who's who. So he's been around the game a while, and so he asked me to do Murph. I do Murph, ends up going pretty well. I was like definitely not doing kipping or butterfly pull-ups. They were kind of a strict / flail type of pull-up.
Yeah, whatever you could do to survive.
Yeah, but I ended up doing pretty well from what they told me, and kind of asked what my training background was, and so they just kind of learned about that, and that kind of was the initial bug. That was actually in the fall. That was like September, around Labor Day, I think, is when they were doing it, if I remember right. It could have been Memorial Day. I can't remember. One of them. And so from that point, I started like dabbling in CrossFit. I would like do one class WOD every, I don't know, couple weeks or something like that. And then that kind of got me a little bit more interested. The Open came around the following year. This was either 19 or 20. And they signed me up for the Open. And I was like, man, I don't know what this is. But there was like Friday Night Lights and all the stuff. And so I think it must have been 19 when this happened. It was the 15-minute AMRAP of the 19 cal row, 19 wall balls.
Oh, yes.
And I did it head-to-head with Brian and this other guy who's like a really good rower, and ended up beating him.
Let's go.
So one of my buddies that signed me up was like, oh, like you got to redo it on Monday because we got to film your workout and make sure it's legit and blah, blah, blah. And so I came back Monday and did it again, and it hurt way worse. And I literally tied my score to the exact – it was like a 300 – I think 380 was my score. I got 10 rounds on the dot, I think. And
yeah, that was a good score on that one.
Yeah, it was. I think it was the top, I don't know, 250 score or something in the world. But I was like, I quit. Like, I'm not doing this. I was messed up for like 20 minutes after the workout for the same score, and I was like, this sucks. So that really got me through that Open. I ended up doing like really well for what the expectation was, because there was like handstand walking, and there was the one workout was the retest with the heavy cleans and the toes-to bar and double unders.
Oh, yeah, that was nasty, dude.
Yeah, the strict handstand push-up workout with the handstand walks and the single dumbbell step-ups. And then I'm trying to think. I think the last week was like just the 27 it was the 33-27 descending ladder of the thruster chest to bar.
Yeah.
And that was another one where I think in the 5th week, come to find out, I was like in the mix to be like fittest in the state with Nick Urankar, who
Yeah.
I think was coming off of the games or something. And so we were going to do this thing with like Bear Complex, who I didn't even know at the time, like this head to head. And when I did it on Friday, I destroyed my hands. And
Oh,
I was actually sicker than a dog. I think that all the intensity from the 4 weeks leading up to that, like, just had me shot. And so my lymph nodes were like swollen the size of golf balls. And I came in and did the workout, did okay, but destroyed my hands.
yeah.
The competitor in me was like, okay, I'm 5 weeks in. I got to try to improve this score. So I come back Monday, and it's like 9:45. I remember all the 9:45 like moms had lined their bikes up to cheer me on. And, I did it again, but wrapped my hands up like mittens. I mean, I had pre-wrap and tape, and then my grips, and I literally had to like grab my barbell like this, and I tied my score again. And so I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
But yeah, that after that open, that's when I was like, okay, like this is kind of fun. Like I've got the bug, but even at that point, I wasn't really doing CrossFit, and I think I had finished like 200 and something in the world. And I'm looking at the leaderboard, and
Really good.
yeah, well now I realize how actually impressive it was. Back then, I knew it was good, but like actually the open after that, I ended up not finishing as well, but I was more fit. So it was
Yeah.
just like stars had kind of aligned where I did extremely well, and didn't have a clue what the heck was going on. Um, I had actually signed up later that June for Granite Games,
Yeah.
but I was in the intermediate division, and my fitness was obviously higher probably than the intermediate division, and ended up going to Granite Games and was certainly out of place in my division.
Did you smoke everyone?
Well, yeah. Well, it was a team. It was a team event, but like even our team was fit, but like it was pretty clear that I probably could have competed in at least the division above.
Yeah.
And by that time, there was people telling me like, "Oh, you got to do CrossFit." And this one mentor of mine, who's like, she's huge in the fitness space now. She's hundreds of thousands and millions online. I've actually done a couple video like programs with her, fitness programs that you can follow along online with like bodybuilding.com. Um, she had told me, "Oh, you need to look at Training Think Tank. You got to look at Training Think Tank." And she was texting me during Granite Games, and she's like, "Max Elhaj is there. He's coaching Travis." And so I'm like Googling Max Elhaj, trying to figure out what this guy looks like.
Yeah.
And
Who is this guy? This bald headed.
yeah. So I literally put my phone in my pocket after Googling him, and Max Elhaj walks in front of me.
You're like,
Yeah, I literally,
what's happening here?
yeah, I yelled at him, and I'm like, Max, I'm like, I know you don't know who I am, but I literally just Googled you, and I basically just told him like, I need help, dude. I'm think I want to do this CrossFit thing. Watching these, got to watch the elite guys, and it was fun seeing them. And so he starts asking me about myself, and I'm telling him like, hey, I've kind of done CrossFit like for about 6 weeks. Did the open. My friends threw me into it, and he thinks I'm BSing him. You can tell, like thinking, okay, I've heard from 100 guys like you.
It's the same old song and dance, dude.
Yeah, and so he's like, well, I'll get back with you when I get back to Atlanta after Granite Games. He's obviously coaching Travis, who went on to win, I think, Granite Games for the 2nd year in a row that year. And
I think there that year. I think I competed that year. What
You
year was that? 2019 or 2018?
it could have been 19 or 20. Yeah, it must have been 19 because 20, I think everything got canceled.
Yeah. I think I was there.
So yeah, he's like, I'll get back with you, and I'm like, he ain't getting back with me. And he's coaching Noah Olson and Travis Mayer, and he literally texted me like 15 minutes later, and he was like, hey, basically, sorry I had to go. It was nice to meet you. When I get back to Atlanta, I'll get in touch. And sure enough, he did. He shot me an email that following week, and I think his thought process was like, okay, let's see like what he's actually made of. He wanted to get me down to Georgia and just kind of throw me into the fire, and that's exactly what he did. So I came down to Georgia. I don't know, it must have been a couple months later. I can't remember exactly when it was. And my first workout was, it was like Travis was there. I think Noah might have been there. Will Morad might have been there. I think Dylan Pettit was there, a kid he's not in the space anymore, but these guys were freaks. Like all of them looked like freaks. I had never been exposed to that environment, and
Yeah.
the workout was 20 cal C2 bike, which I had never been on, 20 cal row, 20 cal ski, and then 200 double unders. And we come out, and these guys are biking at like, I don't know, 3,500 cals an hour. It was just, yeah, it was a dead sprint. And I end up not getting last, but I think I got second to last. And then the weekend went on, and I held my own. I mean, I was clearly like, what I've learned even still to this day is that there's levels to the game. Like, even when you're really fit and you're really good, there's still levels. Like, at the semifinal level, there's levels at the games. Like, there's just so many levels.
Yep.
And so that was my first exposure to it. But at that time, I started working with TTT. And then it's been, if that was late 2019. Yeah, they actually sent me an email, like I think in November, October, saying, hey, we're looking for like a higher level male to do a Wodapalooza team. Would you be interested? And I'm like, sure. And they're like, okay, well, the qualifier starts tomorrow. And I was like, what? And that was Kyle Ruth and Max had sent me that email because I think Kyle was it was the team he was sort of putting together with some of his athletes.
Yep.
We ended up winning the qualifier.
No way.
Yeah, it was like me, Nick Hecht, who was very, very fit.
Dude, he's fit.
Yeah, especially in the box. He's like he's a monster. And then our two girls were, I think one of the girls' names was Ashley something, who she at the time I think was going to be the favorite to win the Masters games the following year, like her first year in that category. And then the other girl was a girl named Missy Herman, who she had missed the games out of the Open by like a point, and she had taken her shoes off or something in a video and got like penalized, or something crazy happened with the video that she had, and she ended up getting penalized and missed the games by like a spot when you could qualify out of the Open. So she was very fit. So now it's no coincidence that we won. It was a very fit team, and I ended up going to Wodapalooza, my first event, in CrossFit, really outside of Granite Games, and I'm lined up next to like Rich Froning and Scott Panchik, because that was.
For those of you who are listening and don't know these names, these are like the celebrities of CrossFit. So like whatever world you're in, whoever the big name is, these are the big names of the CrossFit world.
Yeah, like Froning would be LeBron.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my first exposure, and then 2020. Everything gets canceled after Wodapalooza. We ended up doing well, but our team actually changed because one of the girls got pregnant, one of them got hurt, so we subbed in Calorina, and then we last minute also got Annalise Moore.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Was like 16 years old, like just got out of diapers, and we ended up finishing I think like 7th, which was I thought was a good finish looking back on it, for the circumstances. And then COVID wiped everything out. Yeah. And then basically from that point forward, I've been, I've never not competed, I guess, at a high level. I was just fortunate to get into the sport and be pretty talented. But the training that what happened before I got into CrossFit is really what set me up for.
That was actually my next question, was like, what did you do before it that did set you up to be so successful? Because it's not very common you come in and you're like really good at the sport.
Yeah, I was fortunate, but it was a lot of work. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, not that I've had a ton of success in the sport, but like it was 10 years of training prior to be able to come in and be an overnight success. And so when I was 12, my dad passed away, and that was like the thing that really flipped everything on its head for me. And I knew, like, man, I got to take my health seriously. And I was actually really overweight as a kid. And about the same time my dad passed away, I had a physical for school where I remember the doctor, I was leaving my physical, and he thought that I wasn't paying attention. And he told my mom, like, hey, we got to make some changes with him. And my mom was like crying. And because she felt like embarrassed, I think, that she had failed me or whatever. And at this point, I was overweight. Like, I was coming off of like basically being the stripe in football, and like, but I was still pretty athletic. I remember being in 7th grade and I was thicker than a Snicker, but I played running back because I wasn't like scared to hit, and I still could move a little bit for a big boy. And
Yeah.
but anyway, I essentially I told my mom, hey, I'm gonna stay out of the snack drawer, and I just started like running around my kind of loop out by my house, and then biking. And then there was this class in my 8th grade year of middle school that was called personalized PE, which was like, it was more of the fitness class instead of the kickball. And essentially you trained all year for this like mini little sprint triathlon at the end of the year, which was cool. Looking back now, it was super cool, like that they were doing that with 8th grade. And I remember not thinking I had a shot. I didn't know how to swim. I was the fat kid, like scared to take my shirt off at the pool. Just I was that guy. People even my own brother would make fun of me every day, call me fat boy, and it started to add up. But it fueled me, and I ended up being like top 10 in that triathlon at the end of the year. And for whatever reason, the work ethic was never the issue. Like I remember, I played sports, so that was instilled in me at a young age from my dad. But yeah, I remember walking up onto the stage, and that still to this day I think is maybe the moment I was most proud of myself, because it was something that seemed so far fetched, which is silly that a little sprint triathlon, but that changed everything for me. It made me really believe like I can do this. And then going into freshman year, I start lifting with the football team in the summer, and then I just fell in love with the weight room. I started researching stuff on my own. My best friend at the time was like 100 pounds. He was trying to gain weight.
Yeah.
I was trying to get in shape and lose weight. And so I'll never forget going to like GNC for the first time. And I'm literally like, I think I'm like 15. And I had my buddy drive me there. And I got protein and creatine. And they probably sold me on a bunch of other crap I didn't need. But I remember my buddy coming over for the summertime, and he was like, dude, what is that? And I was like, dude, this is protein. Like, this is how you get muscles. Just on summer break. And to that, from that day forward, I've been taking protein and creatine almost every single day. And that was, 12 years ago. So it just exploded throughout high school. I felt like when I got into high school, even as a freshman, I was still played like nose tackle, but was kind of athletic, and played baseball. That was my main sport. And then I was actually getting recruited by coaches in high school to kind of play basketball and run track or do whatever. And by the time I graduated high school, I was probably, you could argue, the best athlete in the school, when it comes to whatever you consider to be, the best athlete. I could play all the sports and stuff. And so that was super humbling. But it was, I lived in the gym. I was training before school, going to the YMCA after school. I was in advanced weight training in school. And so that 4 years was huge. And then by the time I graduated, I knew I wanted to do something in fitness. And then was going to play collegiate sports, and had the opportunity to, was fortunate to have scholarships and stuff in a couple different sports. But then just decided, hey, I just want to do fitness stuff. And been doing it since. Found CrossFit at like 22 years old, which I wish I would have started. Funny enough, I literally in high school was taking my girlfriend in the summers and dropping her off at the CrossFit gym. And I would drive to the YMCA and train myself, because I'm like, I don't want to do CrossFit. I'm just doing my thing. And had I started doing CrossFit at 17,
dude, who knows?
Yeah, like shoulda, woulda, coulda type of thing. Because I think CrossFit specifically, one of the most underappreciated or undervalued like skills is experience. Even though it's not a skill, like the experience is so vital. And you can be as fit as you want, but if you're not experienced, like you start looking at the people that are like really having success at the top of the sport, they're all experienced. And they might be young, like James Sprague, he's 22 or 23 or whatever he is, but he's probably been doing CrossFit for 3 times as long as me, 12, 13 years maybe. Now we've got these kids coming up that are doing CrossFit in middle school instead of playing ball sports like we were. but yeah, that was kind of the journey leading into CrossFit. And so I would lift, and I did some bodybuilding. I actually did a bodybuilding show with my best friend, like right after I graduated school. Yeah, we did a physique show, but he was willing to do it. So I did it with him. We prepped for like 6 weeks, which actually taught me a ton about nutrition.
Yeah.
And I remember I would go and run the trails, or I would play pickup basketball, or I would do stuff where I always wanted to be an athlete. It wasn't just all about how I looked, but the one of the priorities at the time was like, I want to look good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I came into CrossFit with a good 6-7 years of like experience in the weight room. I actually remember one of the first things I did in my gym. They had tested like the 30 ring muscle ups per time, I think, at the 2019 games. This is in August, and I still wasn't like fully bought in. And Brian Wong, I was like, man, I think I could do that. And he's like, no, don't do it. It's not the stimulus you want. You're going to rip your hands. You could probably get hurt. And you probably can't do it anyway. And when he told me that, that's when I was like, oh, I think I can.
I think I can, dude. I'm going to go do it.
So some people had bet me like $100 or a steak dinner or something that I couldn't do it in under 5 minutes. And I think the times at the games then were like minute and a half. Like guys were going almost unbroken, even in 2019. And I ended up doing it in 4:59. But I shredded my hands, and I was sore for like 2 weeks. I had DOMS, and Brian was right. I remember having to shower, I think, with like bread bags over my hands because they were just literally peeled.
Yep.
But to be able to do that at that time was only because of the training that I had done prior.
You had that mindset. You had the mindset of like, I'm going to do this or die trying.
Yeah. This is the guy that owns our gym, his son.
Oh,
you go out on this meeting? Thanks, buddy. Shut that door, please. They're gym, dude. But yeah, that's kind of my story, leading into CrossFit. I always tell people it's like I'm truthfully I'm no better or no more skilled or blessed than anyone else. I mean, certainly you have God-given ability, but I just don't miss. Like I've just been very consistent, day after day, year after year. It hasn't been anything fancy. Because people ask me all the time, what supplement should I take or this or that. You get it all the time, I'm sure. It's like everybody wants that quick fix, or they want the little secret that can make it just a little bit easier or expedite it just a little bit faster. When in reality, it's just like consistency wins.
That's it, man. That's it. You just keep showing up. And the thing with this, I could go off on a tangent with this all day. The thing with that too, especially in our industry when we're trying to either market ourselves for fitness or nutrition, is telling people that doesn't sell. What sells is, hey, I'll get you a 6-pack in 30 days. They're like, oh, no way. But it's the reality. It's like, it takes a long time to like actually see change in the body and keep it there. And that doesn't sell when you tell someone, hey, you're going to have to grind for the next few years. They're like, oh.
Yeah. And it's so in depth too, I think, all the time. Cause it's like, I have clients that they're trying to lose weight, for example, and they don't realize, like, if they're in a caloric deficit, if they're just in a slight deficit every day, one bad day on the weekend could take their deficit for the week and wipe it out.
Gone.
But they don't have the leeway because they didn't get out of shape in 3 weeks, and so they see someone like me where I may eat a little bit differently, or I may have more ability to kind of be more flexible, but that's kind of been earned over the last 12 years, where it's like I didn't earn that in 6 weeks. It's been 12 years. So it's like, it's one meal or one bad day isn't going to affect me the same as it may affect them when it comes to weight loss. And it's like, there's so many layers to the consistency thing where you just start to like, just stack these bricks, that, begin to, sort of create who you are and just build fitness and knowledge and stuff like that. Even in CrossFit specifically, it's like, certainly I'm getting better with the experience and stuff like that, but it's like I also haven't stopped, and so other guys just begin to they start to fall off, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, if there was 40 guys that you were kind of competitive with the last couple of years, and now there's like 15, other guys have just fallen off. You just haven't stopped. It's that, it's that saying, it's hard to beat a dude that never quits.
That's it, man, dude. That is literally the motto I'm living by right now, especially with like the business side of it. It's like if you
Yeah.
don't quit, you can't lose. Like just
Yeah.
out people, and it's so true.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, it doesn't sell, and it is frustrating because we're in that world where it's like you have to make money like in what you're doing if you want to do this full time, but you don't want to sell out.
Right.
And you want to really help people and impact lives, but the real answer like doesn't necessarily sell. Like people don't want to hear that. Hey, you might have to stack days for the next couple of years to see true long term progress.
Yeah.
You may actually have to track your macros for the next 2 months and put the extra work in weighing your food and stuff like that. And that stuff is not as appeasing to people.
Yeah, it's not sexy.
No,
It's not
not
sexy. I want to come back to the nutrition piece of this, but I didn't know your story as far as you being overweight as a kid.
mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, man. Was that a big motivator for you? Like, was that the motivator for you? Was like, I'm overweight, it's pissing
Yeah.
me off. I don't want to be unhealthy.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly, I very specifically remember, like, it was so extreme that, like, when we would swim at school with our class, I would get a doctor's note or have my mom write a note saying that I was, like, allergic to chlorine so that I wouldn't have to take my shirt off around girls or my classmates. This is at a young age. I mean, I remember there was nights I would go to bed and be literally demoralized because I was called fat 3 or 4 times that day, or people. I was such an easy target in terms of making a joke. Like
Yeah.
now I can mess with my buddies, with their sports teams or whatever. But back then it was very easy just to call me fat boy or chunky monkey or whatever. Um, and then yeah, just the sports thing too was like I remember in 8th grade playing basketball and being like the last guy on the bench. And I was like, that's not where I want to be. Like, I want to play. I want to be in the game. And so I knew just looking at who the best athletes were, even in high school or college, like there's a difference between what they look like and what I look like. So I think it was the combination of just being, fat and out of shape myself. I mean, I could climb a flight of stairs and would be out of breath. I very specifically remember that. I remember begging to eat fast food after games and stuff. It was 3 or 4 days a week. And especially after my dad had passed, my mom was really, she just wanted to give her boys kind of what they wanted, but I don't think she thought about the long term repercussions. And so she would take me to McDonald's and Taco Bell or wherever. And also as a single mom, that's convenient. On days where you're working full time, my mom was working 10, 11-hour days and then trying to take care of us in the evening. And she was a great cook, but after sports games at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, I can only imagine now how exhausted she probably was. And so sometimes it was just an easy option, but it's crazy. Like when I talk about like McDonald's or Taco Bell, I can almost taste the food. And what's wild is I haven't had fast food like that or a drop of pop in 14 years.
14
Since
years.
I was 13 years old and wanted to make the change. Cold turkey, haven't had fast food or a drop of pop in 13 years.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And what's I'm sure you've thought this, but it's kind of almost a blessing that you went through that in a way, right? Like
Yeah.
now, you wouldn't. I don't want to say you wouldn't be who you are today, but like,
Yeah.
strong chance that you wouldn't be.
No, it's actually there's been times where I've struggled wrestling with it, but it's like even losing my dad, like of course I would do anything to have my dad back, but had I not lost my dad, I would absolutely not be who I am or where I am today. There's no doubt about it. That's just the reality of it when you look at it. So yeah, in a way that's a blessing. In another way, it's a tragedy as well. The world doesn't stop spinning for anybody, so you got to get up and put your boots on and get them on the ground every single day. But yeah, it's no doubt I've thought about that. It's like if those things hadn't happened to me, there's no way I'd be who I am or where I am. So it's kind of cool to think about that way.
Yeah. What did your dad pass away from?
Actually, there's a terrible heart history on my dad's side. There's only been, I think, one male on my dad's side to live over 50, um, which is a pretty significant. Like, if you talk to a cardiologist or something about that, they would say that that's extremely alarming, and they'd tell me to go get my heart checked right now. And I have had my heart checked, throughout the years, not in several years now, just because I am in pretty good shape. But when I'm like 30 years old, I'll probably go and get some stuff ran just to kind of check up. And now as I approach, now that I get closer to the age that my dad was, I realize how young he actually was. He was 38 when he passed away. So you're like, what, 31, 30?
I'll be 32 in February. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're literally, it's like, think about your son and like, man, it's like so significant. I don't have kids, but if I did, I would never want them to kind of have to go through that. That would be enough of a motivator for me. And it is, I'm sure it is for you. It's like, you want to be, when your kid's 20 years old, you want to be able to whoop his butt.
Yeah.
But
100%.
more so than that, it's like, you just want to be around, you're his dad, and there's probably nothing that makes you more proud or work harder than being a dad. And so seeing that, it's like, yeah, that's certainly a motivator, as well as to kind of break the statistic, but also just be able to have that longevity, outside of like CrossFit is kind of what I do, like, personally, to like compete. But at the end of the day, it's like my main pillars are like, I want to be functional and be able to, when I'm 70 years old, do the things I want to do. But I want to have longevity. I want to be around when I'm 70. So that's like the ultimate driving factor. If you kind of ask me like, what's my why? It's like, that's why, and it's most people, I don't think, know their why, because it could take a lot of self-reflection or tough conversations with yourself, or like,
Yep.
It's easy to find, everyone, well, not everyone, but if you want the six pack, once you get it, then what? If
Dude, so funny you're saying that, because I literally just made a video on that, and I said that exact thing. It's like, in order to anchor yourself to fitness and health for long term, it's got to be deeper than the superficial.
yeah,
I mean, once you get there, exactly like you said, like, what then? You just ride that out forever. Most likely, you've got to anchor it to something deep.
Yeah, and it's even the girl I talked about earlier, that's sort of a mentor. She helped me with that. Like, she actually, the name of the program that we did was called FYR, but it stood for Find Your Reason. And it's deeper than the looks, and it's deeper than, like, let's just say someone's trying to make $1 million. Well, then what?
Right.
Is it 2 million? Is it 3? Will you continue to move the goalpost? And so, for me, like, even in CrossFit, it's like, certainly the CrossFit Games may be the pinnacle of our sport, or maybe it's going to be a new event someday. But it's like, once you get there, I mean, I went on a team, and it's like, once you get there, then what? You have to love the process of what you do, because once the product comes, if that's all you were chasing, you're going to be in a very, very dark place. And I left very empty. And I've had to learn that the tough way with some things in my life, but now I think my perspective is much different, and it helps me truly fall in love with what I do every day, and kind of have a deeper reason for why I do what I do. And that's inside and outside of fitness. Obviously, it's easy to attach it, to fitness because we do that. But I think it has to be that way with anything you do.
Yeah. What I had this question pop in my mind. Maybe it's a loaded question, but I'm curious for you, because I struggle with that too. As I go through the process of still trying to be fit and run a business and do all these things and be a dad, I can get very attached to the goal, right? Like, one of my goals, I'm still working in a restaurant right now. One of my goals is I want to get out of the restaurant. I don't want to be able to do this full time. But I oftentimes look back and I'm like, man, am I missing? I think I'm gonna look back and miss these days, like, miss the dog days, miss the grind, miss the thing. And so I'm curious for you, how do you remind yourself to stay in love with the process? Is there a thing you do, or is it just like kind of habitual now? I'm curious selfishly for myself, but I'm sure someone else out there wants to know as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is that anytime you're chasing something hard, I'll just use the CrossFit thing, for example. It's like, certainly, I want making the games would be awesome, but like, CrossFit doesn't pay my bills either. So showing up to train, I tell people, like, I train like a professional, every single day, and I'm fortunate to be able to do that. But I'm not paid like a professional. So it has to be something that you truly enjoy every single day, or you have a deeper reason for what you're doing. And for me, it's like, yeah, I'm hopefully setting myself up better physically, mentally, and emotionally, spiritually. It takes the entire kind of package to come in and train hard. CrossFit's not, even people like in the affiliate setting, CrossFit's not easy. Like you don't going to the YMCA and walking on an incline or something. Not that that's not to discredit anybody if that's what they're doing, because that's awesome too. But maybe baseball is a better example, because I used to play that. Like baseball practices are usually pretty fun. You long toss, you get to take BPs, weather's nice, and it's just CrossFit. Come in to train, and there's a huge difference between training and exercise. Like training, you're racing a clock, you're constantly using percentages, you're probably sore a lot of the times. It's longer sessions, and exercising, I think, is more enjoyable. It's still good for you, but you're not necessarily worried about as many of those other factors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it's like, yeah, the it's just a constant reminder of like the bigger why. And the bottom line is like CrossFit or whatever you're chasing doesn't owe you anything. Like there's no guarantee that just because you put the work in, you're going to ever arrive at your goal. So if you achieve it or if you don't, you're only left with the process and the experience and the hours and time that you've invested in the pursuit. And so if you don't enjoy that, it's really, really tough. And I think you're not going to give yourself as good of a chance to truly achieve something. I feel like a lot of people don't achieve their goals because they quit, a lot earlier than they should have. And that could be, maybe you think you're going to get there in 2 years and it takes 10. And so you tap out way too early. They don't have the ability to just keep chipping away.
Keep chipping away.
Yeah, I think that kind of answered your question. But yeah, it is like, the reality is some days aren't fun. Like I'm very fortunate to where I do love what I do every day. And I joke with people about, oh, I don't feel like I've worked a day in my life, because I've only had like, maybe 1 or 2 jobs in my whole life where I've like technically had a boss. Other than that, I've been self-employed. But being able to like coach people and impact lives in a positive way, like through my gifts, that's like one of my actual ultimate, like when I'm dead and gone, like that's one of my missions here, is like impact as many lives as I can in a positive way through the gifts that I've been given. And that's bigger than like the CrossFit Games or anything like that. And that's actually what brings me like true reward, or a sense of well-being, is like impacting others. Like I still coach in on affiliate, and that's one of my most enjoyable things. But like seeing other people hit their goals is actually fires me up more than when I hit a PR. And I think the reason that is because I've been on the other side when I was out of shape and like was not in shape, and was unhealthy. And it's like, so I know what it's like to be, I guess, lost or feel unhealthy or not comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
And so when I can help people with their journey, I know how much it's going to change their life, and it just brings me so much joy.
Hey, real quick, is there anywhere else you can quiet? Only reason is because I'm afraid the audio might be bad, and you're dropping the hammer, and I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be muted or blurred out.
It's tough because there's construction going on today, but there's our lobbies out here. Let me say something. They'll be okay.
Okay.
Oh, you're good. Thank you. That should be good. I asked them just to turn the volume down a little bit. So
No, you're good, man. I get it, dude. It's always a grind trying to figure out how to do these virtual ones.
yeah, with our class stuff, it was all. I would have went to my house, but nothing will connect to my Wi-Fi at my house right now, so it's weird.
Oh yeah, no, you're totally okay. I'll go in and I'll mess with the editing and stuff.
Okay.
But I want to do this too. So when you start working with a client, like What's the first thing that you try to do with your clients as far as nutrition goes? Like, how do you, what's your plan of attack for helping someone?
Mm.
What's your system? What's your process? Because I want to hear, how you do it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is I try to learn about not just their recent history, but like their long term history. And I know this personally. Like I still have some traumas, I guess, from food. Like people that hear, "Oh, I haven't had pop or fast food in 13 years," they think that I'm a psycho. And it's crazy how that is look like. Like I've never had a drop of alcohol either, and people think that's crazy. And it's like it's crazy how as a society, and I don't want to get too far on topic, but as a society, that's looked at as being crazy. But going to
You never
going
had alcohol?
the hey, can you go out for a second, bud? Um, but going to the bar and getting wasted, that's not seen as like abnormal.
Right.
But because of my experience with the way I used to eat and kind of now the way I'll even like look at foods, and I try not to categorize foods as like good and bad because I do think that balance is important and having flexibility and stuff. But the biggest thing I do when starting with a new client is trying to figure out their history because I think that can play a huge role in how they're, what their mindset is on nutrition. And so I may, look back 2, 3, 4, 10 years, and then we'll look back 3, 5, 7, 12 months to kind of see what they've been doing. That's the first thing. And then after I kind of learn that, I really try to help people figure out their why. Again, it's like, okay, is this just a goal on the scale, or do we have a bigger goal? Is this to like help your blood sugar? Is this to like not have as much inflammation in your body? Like, what is this? Do you have a digestion problem? Like, really figure out what it is. And then after we kind of figure out those factors, then I can kind of come up with a plan, in my head with what makes the most sense. And I actually tell people all the time, I love working with high level athletes in the gym. It's my favorite, like people to work with is high level athletes. But the nutrition is like probably my absolute favorite because every single person is a different puzzle. And like training, we can get someone strong using, similar progressions or, whatever methods. But with nutrition, it's like there's so many different routes, and like everyone is literally a 100% customized. Like you and I can both get really fit on the same fitness program. Like we could follow TTT's block program. We could do Mayhem's block program. We've got enough experience where it's like we'll be fit doing any of them.
Yep.
But with nutrition, you and I have different lifestyles. We have different personalities. We have different energy expenditures. We have different genetics. We have so many different factors that play how we eat and what we need that it's such a customized thing. And for me as a coach, that's the most unique thing to me. It keeps me interested, I think, more. So
Yeah. Do you do any sort of blood work with anybody? Like, do you have them do any tests or anything like that?
it depends. If I think that it's necessary, depending on what people's, if people come to me low energy or they're not recovering or they're very stressed or their sleep's bad, then I sometimes will recommend, hey, go get some general labs or go get this ran if you can. I try not to get doctor because I'm not, but specifically, I think the biggest group of people that I'll have do stuff like that is like the 30 to 50-year-old male. Just because like the testosterone and stuff, and it seems to be the biggest issue with that age group, at least with the people I'm working with. Like the 15-year-old that's just trying to put weight on for high school football. I'm not probably recommending he goes and gets blood work, but as you age, I think there's more benefits in doing stuff like that. So yeah, I've definitely recommended it to people. I'm fortunate here in the Indy area that I've got some different like labs and places that do that type of stuff. And so I just kind of will recommend people go and see them if possible. I know insurance and all that stuff can be weird. So, but yeah, I don't think it's bad.
Yeah. What do you do for yourself? Like, what does your nutrition look like? And what supplements do you take outside of protein and creatine, if anything?
Yeah. So my nutrition is again, it's pretty solid. Like I've been doing it for a long time. but I don't track macros. Every once in a while, I would say maybe once a year, I'll track for a couple weeks just to fine tune and make sure I'm getting enough. But I
You
would
don't.
say,
How dare you?
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm still in touch. I don't live on the scale, but I'll get my weight and kind of make sure that I'm, keeping my weight. If my training volume goes up, then the calories go up. Um, so yeah, that actually the biggest thing for me to wrestle, and this I know for a fact is due to my past, has been the weight gain that I have had in competing in CrossFit as a sport. Um, it's actually been unhealthy for my mind. It's been difficult for me to overcome for the last couple of years because my weight has just kind of naturally climbed, and it's easy for me now to be 175 and shredded without doing too much. Like my training volume can be less. I don't have to eat as much. And just because of my consistency over the last 12 years, I'll keep a really nice frame at 175, 180 pounds at my height, 5'9". And it's comfortable. It feels good. But in CrossFit, it's like 180 pounds isn't going to cut it anymore. So,
You gotta be big now.
and I'm still always going to be one of the smaller guys. Like now, the top 10 to 15 guys at the games are averaging like 215 pounds. And so Kyle Ruth, he's always like, "Hey, are you eating? Like, we need to put on weight." Or it's like, "Yeah, you do," but it's like I'm only going to be so big. I'm not ever going to be probably 205 pounds. If I am, it's going to be tough to probably maintain the fitness I have overall.
Yeah.
But mentally, it's been tough because it's like I don't love the way I look at 191, 192 pounds.
Yeah.
And I can't have those conversations with some people because they would say, "You look awesome. Like, how dare you? Could you say that? Like, you're one of the
Yeah.
fittest people in the world," and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, but where I came from, it's like I used to be super, super overweight. And I've also seen my frame at 175, 180, and that's kind of my real happy range. And so I'm pushing now to be what I am. And it's proof that like aesthetics and performance don't always go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to coach. It's easy to coach with people, but reminding myself of that is difficult. But yeah, I don't do anything crazy when it comes to nutrition. It's like I try to eat quality foods. Everything I try to put in my mouth is high quality. I try to avoid, a lot of stuff out of the boxes and the bags. But I also there's stuff that I eat that's processed at times. Now I try to eliminate as much of that as possible, but I'm also like I think the nutrition world, and this could be a whole different podcast, but I think the nutrition world and social media has created this like fear mongering type of like vibe where it's like people think if they consume like a little bit of red 40, like it's the end of the world. When some, and I actually had a client yesterday send me this list that it said 23 benefits to eating one meal a day. And I was like, okay, so I read through them. Half of them were complete garbage. Not
Oh,
like one of them said better skin. It's like, who says who?
yeah. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, like has anyone actually studied if eating once a day improves your skin? I
Yeah.
don't think, not that I'm aware of. But I told them I could make a list of 46 things that create problems from eating once a day. And so, sure, maybe for this comes back to the customization of nutrition. For someone, maybe it's good, but for the overwhelming majority of people, eating one meal a day is not going to be conducive to long-term success when it comes to their health and wellness
Oh,
or performance. Um, so yeah, it's like stuff like that. Just it gets people. There's social media is great. It's a phenomenal tool, but it's filled with more garbage than it is quality. And it's the same as like the supplement store. The supplement store is filled with more garbage than it is quality. It's a business. Which kind of leads me into the other part of your question is like, what supplements do I take? I've taken creatine literally every single day. Nearly, I mean, I've missed a couple of days, obviously, but every day since I was literally 13 or 14 years old. And I'm thankful that I have because when I was in high school, it was like creatine had a bad rep. Our
it
high
did.
school coach
Yeah.
was like, "Stuff's gonna kill you."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think actually now, I think in 5 years, 5 to 10 years, I think 5 years, especially with this new administration and like kind of the more health like focus they have, I think creatine is going to eventually end up being looked at as like a multivitamin for
Yeah.
people.
it's amazing for you.
Yeah, it's just like a daily health and wellness. And whereas right now it's still, sports performance. I think it's there's more and more research coming out about, the cognitive benefits and the health benefits with your heart,
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. So creatine I take, whey protein I take, not every day, but I do try to take it. It just helps with like the not eating as much food and still getting my protein requirements.
Yep.
I take like a liquid carb product just to kind of help fuel training, especially when the volume is up. So I take a product from a brand that I actually partner with that's just called Fuel. And it's just a real quality carb. It's got electrolytes and stuff, easy digesting. And then after that, it kind of depends. I most multivitamins are bad, but if you can find a good one, depending on like I don't get a ton of sun right now, so if you can find a good multivitamin, I think that's worth looking into it, especially if you're like me. My immune system is probably a little bit compromised because of my training intensity, so I think it's beneficial. But for some people, maybe a multivitamin isn't as necessary. But I do take a multivitamin. I'm trying to think of what else is in my supplement cabinet that I take.
What brand do you use for multivitamin? Can you share it, or will you get any like?
No. So for a while, I took a multivitamin from BPN Subs. That was just their strong multivitamin, and it's a good multivitamin. But I also took it because it was free. But now I'm partnering with a brand that's called Revive MD. And their product line is more like health and wellness based, but they're under the same umbrella as like Raw Nutrition, which is heavily known in the bodybuilding space, but they now have a branch called Raw Endurance.
Nice.
And so I partner with them just recently. I think I might be their first person like in the CrossFit space, which is kind of cool. But their stuff is like informed choice, tested for sport, and it crossed all of my boxes. But now I'm taking the multivitamin from Revive. Those are really like the keys. I sometimes throughout the year I'll supplement with extra vitamin D, and then every evening I take magnesium.
Yep.
I'll do that at night. But I really don't stray like too far from the sidewalk in terms of supplements. I at times will take like beta alanine. If I have like an afternoon session that I don't want to have caffeine for, I will take that. I will take a pre-workout sort of product before I train.
Yeah.
But again, I think the pre-workout area is tough. I think most of them are garbage or not. The juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
But again, at my level or your level, when you're trying to get that extra 1%, if you're crossing your boxes, then I think it can be beneficial to gain an edge where you can. But I always tell most people this saying I always use is they step over dollars to pick up pennies.
Yep.
And so if you have all your boxes, if you're sleeping well, if you're eating well, if you're doing the right recovery work, if your training makes sense, then it could be time to potentially look into something to drink before your training.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the other stuff covered, then you're probably wasting your money.
100%. Yeah, I'm huge. I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I try to be very clear about this whenever I share stuff that I do when it comes to nutrition or training is like I am in a different category than who I'm talking to. So it's more descriptive than it is prescriptive. I'm not telling you to do what I do because we're in different boats, and I think it's really important to share that with people because they'll listen, they'll see what you and I do, and they'll be like, I want to eat 500 grams of carbs a day, and it's like, well, okay, let's back that up a little bit. We need to figure out that first.
Yeah, that's tough in training and in nutrition. Even like within my affiliate is like you don't get to where we're at by doing what we're doing now because that's not what it always looked like. And so people always ask me, well, how would you do this workout? Or what do you eat? And it's like, and it sounds arrogant, but I say it humbly, like I am not who they are, or you are not who they are. So it's like, you should not be doing what we're doing. It's been 12, 13 years for me to get to this point. And I'm a professional. So there's factors that change where most people need to take care of so many other things before they start to look into some of the things that we might be doing.
People used to always when I was coaching, people used to always ask, how would you do this workout? And I'd be like, you guys, you just want me to tell you what I would do to then say, oh, yeah, well, we're not doing that because we're not capable. It's like,
Yeah, and they always,
don't,
yeah,
don't ask me, because how I'm going to do this is I'm going to try to go as unbroken as possible. And you guys
right.
need to that's a 3.
Yeah, I always, when people ask, and it's every single day, I say, how would I do it, or how do you think I think you should do it? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's always, it's fun to get those questions for sure. But yeah, the supplements are. I also am fortunate too, where I can kind of experiment with a wider range of supplements because I do have a partnership with brands,
Yeah.
and so the cost isn't coming out of my pocket, and so I have the um, I'm fortunate to be able to try more than I would if I'm like spending money on all this stuff. But most people, it's like if you're kind of balling on a budget or you don't want to spend hundreds of dollars on supplements, the number one is obviously the creatine monohydrate that I would recommend, and then it's case dependent. After that, it's kind of what somebody needs. But yeah, the supplement industry is tough. It's something I'm very interested in. I've been around it for a long time. It's been funny to see the supplement industry evolve since I was like 13.
Yeah.
I've seen so many products come out and be the next best thing, and then they all end up, going to the wayside. But the ones that have remained are the creatine monohydrate. Caffeine is performance enhancing for sure.
Yeah.
People probably abuse it. As a
Yeah.
world, I think we abuse it. And then obviously like a quality protein product. But even now, it's like some of these proteins are so like with the protein spiking and the quality, and it's like it's tough to differentiate the good from the bad. So that's a big part of the coaching too, I think, is more so than like everyone focuses on the macros, but teaching people kind of all these tricks of the trade, like even teaching people how to read like a nutrition label
Yeah.
is like it's super valuable for people. I have clients that have paid me to like go to the grocery store with them and literally walk through the store with them as they get groceries. And I think that's a huge need for people. It's just like learning how to navigate the store and the whole marketing sphere, and like stuff is placed in a certain area to try to manipulate your mind into thinking that you should have it, or stuff is placed at a certain height for your kids, and
Yeah.
yeah, there's value. I think there's tons of value. Actually, I would probably say there's more value outside of just teaching someone their macros when it comes to like health and wellness in the nutrition and supplement world, because there's so much crap to dissect.
Yeah, there really is, man. We'll have to do another follow-up episode,
Yeah,
and go even further into this. We have to hop off. I've got a call coming up in, I don't know, 2-3 minutes. But
yeah, you're good.
I appreciate you hopping on, man. I appreciate you sharing all this stuff, dude. I think people are going to get a lot of value out of just listening to your story, especially I know about your past growing up, man. I really appreciate you sharing that and being
Yeah.
willing to be vulnerable like that, man. That's people are going to get a lot out of that.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely, people just see our Instagram accounts or stuff online and they don't, understand, it's funny. I won't be long winded here because I know you got to go, but it's like in CrossFit specifically, like even someone at my level who really hasn't done a ton can go into a local box and people think that I'm a celebrity when
Yes.
like only in that nucleus. It's like I'm just fast at exercising, but I put my shoes on the same way that someone else does. So we're real people with real stories. Not everybody shares them, but yeah, I think it's important for people to understand that where people came from and that we're going through some of the same trials and tribulations that someone is now.
All right, dude. Well, hey, enjoy the rest of your day,
Yeah,
and
for you as well.
we'll plan a follow-up one, dude. And we'll do this again for sure.
Yeah, it'd be fun. It's good seeing you, dude.
All right. For you guys watching and listening, thank you for tuning in. As always, keep moving forward. If you ever need anything, reach out to Tanner. Where can people find you on social media?
Just at Tanner Balazs, TANNERBALAZS.
Perfect. All right, I'll put a link to it in the show notes so people can find you.
Awesome. Appreciate it, dude.
All right, you guys. See you later.
We'll see you.